Hello everybody, Mr. Khalid there, English Department, Horizon Language School. And today we will have chapter 9, The Locket and the Ring, and this is on page 47. So to recap chapter 8, we finished when Oliver woke up in terror and looked at the window, he found Fagin and the man he saw outside the inn. So let's go on chapter 9. And here we have Mr. Bumble was sitting in the workhouse parlor. And if you do remember Mr. Bumble, he was the official of the workhouse. And he was sitting like in his room in the workhouse. And he was no longer the beadle, but the manager of the workhouse. So his wife was shouting at him as he sat in his chair half asleep. "Are you going to sit there snoring all day?" His wife scolded like she spoke with him in a bad way. So she told him, "Get up, get out of my way. So here we have a question like, how was Mr. Bumble when he left the workhouse? So after his wife scolded him, Mr. Bumble left the workhouse and walked unhappily up and down the streets. Having nothing else to do, he decided to take a drink. So because he felt depressed of this way, like he was walking, wandering in the street. So he drank at one of the inns he had passed. As he went inside, he noticed a tall, dark-haired man wearing a long cloak. And cloak is like a long coat. So this man like was sitting and having a drink at the inn. So I have seen you before, I think. This man said to Mr. Bumble. So this man like knew Mr. Bumble like very well, and he told him, "You used to work for the parish. You were in charge of its orphans, weren't you?" And this is like something strange. Like how come this man knows Mr. Bumble very well? So for sure Mr. Bumble felt surprised because he had no idea about the reality of this man. So Mr. Bumble confessed to the fact and he said, "Yes, I was. Now I am the manager of the workhouse." So what did the stranger ask for? Like what did this man ask Mr. Bumble for? So you will know right now. "So I came to this town to find you," the stranger said, "and by chance you have found me. So I want some information from you. So what do you think this information is?" "So I shall pay you well." Okay, so Mr. Bumble will get paid in case he provided this man with this information. But the question is, what do you think the information is? So cast your memory, and this is like a wonderful expression because cast your memory means like to think deeply, to think in a deep way. So cast your memory back 12 years. It was a winter's night and a woman was about to give birth to a baby boy. So this man like knows the past, that maybe he knows Oliver very well, and even he knows Mr. Bumble very well. So he reminded him of that day when Oliver came to life, and he was the one who went to work for the coffin maker and ran away to London. So he knew everything about Oliver in the past, and this made Mr. Bumble so surprised. So for sure Mr. Bumble knew what does this man mean. He means Oliver Twist. So he asked about Oliver Twist. And on the coming page, so indeed the stranger said, "Now I want to hear about the old nurse who was there when he was born." So you have to remember the old nurse when Oliver came to life, she was standing there. And this man wants some information about this nurse. So this nurse was called Sally, Mr. Bumble said, and she died last winter, but I know a woman who was with her when she died. So this man wants to get information about Sally and the woman who accompanied her during Oliver's birth. So the man scribbled an address, and the scribbled means to write in a careless way. So the man scribbled an address on a piece of paper and gave it to Mr. Bumble. being here tomorrow at 9, he said. So he asked Mr. Bumble to be there at 9 the following day. Okay, and he wants like some information about the woman who was there with the nurse. So who shall I ask for? Mr. Bumble said, because believe it or not, Mr. Bumble has no idea about this man, although this man knows Mr. Bumble very well. So his name was Monks. The man replied as he walked away. So the next evening, Mr. and Mrs. Bumble made their way down to a ruined mill, and ruined mean like destroyed place, like a dirty place. So Mr. Bumble and Mrs. Bumble like go to this way, and this gives us the idea that the woman who was there with Nurse Sally was Mrs. Bumble. So believe it or not, this man brought his wife to such a wild-looking man. Monks. Like how come a man bring his wife to a man like Monks, like to provide him with such information? So again, Mrs. Bumble was there with Nurse Sally during Oliver's birth. And when they arrived at this dirty house, a small door opened and Monks showed them inside. Okay, so they come inside this dirty house. This is the woman, isn't it? Monks asked, bolting the door behind them. So he pushed the door in a bad way, because this man only cares about the information and that's it. So this is the woman, and by this woman, Mr. Bumble means his wife. And again, Mr. Bumble's wife, this was the woman who was present during Oliver's birth, and she was standing beside Nurse Sally. So you were present when the old nurse died, is that right? Monks asked. Mrs. Bumble nodded. She said, yes, I was there. No one else was there, he asked firmly. No, no one. And she told you something? Like, did this woman, and he means like the nurse, did she tell you something? He asked, staring intensely at Mrs. Bumble. So like he was looking strongly at this woman. Yes, something about the mother of Oliver Twist, she said. So this woman, and she meant the nurse herself, she told me some information about Oliver's mother at this time. What did she say? Said Monks, like he wants to know the truth. That is the first question. But here, do you think Mrs. Bumble like will tell him the truth right away? No, absolutely. So no, Mrs. Bumble replied coldly. Like she replied in a cold way, because at this time Mrs. Bumble, like she cared about nothing but only money. The first question is, how much is this information worth? Like if you have the information I want to hear, it will be worth 25 pounds, said Monks. So this was Monks' offer to Mrs. Bumble just to provide him with the information he needs. So, but the strangest thing is that Mrs. Bumble or just care only about the money, because she told him, give me the money first, then I'll tell you, not before. Monks hesitated for a moment. Reluctantly, he threw the money on the table, like he threw the money up in here, because he wanted to get the information and let these people away. So now what do you know? He asked it firstly, like he asked it here, what information do you have? You got the money, tell me. Mrs. Bumble quickly picked up the money and started talking. So before she died, and she means like Sally told me that she stole something from Oliver's mother, that she had begged her to give her baby. So before Oliver's mother died, she told Mrs. or Miss Sally that the nurse was there to keep this, like give her something to keep it with her, and she begged this woman, and like she begged the nurse itself to give it to her baby. So again, Oliver's mother, before she died, she gave something important to the nurse there, and she was Sally, and she asked her like to give this important thing to her baby, and she means Oliver Twist. So like Monkeys was curious, but what was it like? What was the thing, and where is it? Here, Mrs. Bumble replied, throwing a leather bag onto the table. Monkeys tore open the bag with trembling hands, like his hands was shaking because he wanted to know like more information about this like thing. So what do you think like this contains? So inside was a little gold locket containing 2 locks of hair and a plain gold ring engraved with the name Agnes. So this locket contains again like 2 pieces of hair and like a gold ring, and this ring has the name of Agnes. And for sure, like if you take a good look, this could be the name of Oliver's mother. He stood up and pushed the table to one side. Then he pulled on an iron ring on the floor to open a large trap door, because like he wants to get rid of this thing, because later on you will know why did Monkeys do this. So he took again this locket from her, and here they saw a rushing stream, like there was like something like a piece of water underneath the house, like a piece of land containing water underneath the house, and Monkeys picked up the leather bag, tied away, like he tied something heavy in it, like to make it sink into the stream. Up the leather bag, tied a weight to it, and dropped it into the water. So, and here's the question, like, why do you think Monkeys like threw this locket up on the water, and why do you think Monkeys like paid so much money to get the thing, and then like he finally threw it into the water? So here like we have many questions. You have to think, why did Monkeys again like bring Mrs. Bumble, asked her like such information to get the locket and finally to throw it into the water? So I need you to think of this like fact. So if you ever meet me again, and this was Monkeys' threat to Mrs. Bumble and even Mr. Bumble, if you ever meet me again, he said, you don't know me, now get out of here. So he spoke in like fiercely way, and he spoke in a threatening tone, and he wanted them to be away because he already got what he needed from them. And this was the end of chapter 9. So I hope you like get all the information you needed here, and hope you the best ever. Wish you the best luck, and see you soon, inshallah.